share with, thank you. I would like to share with you my presentation, and please let me know if you can, you're able to see it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
You can,
Well,
we can
just
see
let me.
now.
Okay. Well, this is the name of the presentation is advising from planning to evaluating. It's not just about like to have and provide this service at a self-access. It involves a series of steps that we have been looking at through the years. And then I would like to share with you what this process is about. Feel free at the end of this presentation to ask any questions or comments, please. Well, a little bit of, let me just like move a little bit. The content, what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to explain you a little bit who we are. Brief walk through learning autonomy, about the learning environment, what is a self-access center, what is advising a self-access center, what the research gap, how we got the idea of getting involved into this, what I'm proposing, and what's coming next, and finally your comments and questions. Okay, well, let's start. I'm currently working at Universidad Michoacana, and I'm currently, as I said, like for the last 21 years. And now for the second time, I'm in charge of the Self-Access Center. And at the same time, I'm helping teachers with the Academia de Inglés at the Coordinación del Departamento de Idiomas here at this university, this state university. And the Universidad Michoacana holds around 55,000 students. Okay. We are a huge university. And currently there are 3,000 students enrolled at the Coordinación del Departamento de Idiomas. Okay. The Self-Access Center was established in 2000, right? And since then, I've been working there. So for the last 25 years, I've been working there as an advisor, as a manager. So I've been through all the different steps that the center has been through. In 2008, there was a policy in the university that most of the faculties had to be recognized by the quality of the services they offer, that we know as acreditaciones in Mexico, and I'm pretty sure that you've been through. And so they said, well, what about if we include the Self-Access Center, since it provides and helps students to practice, to develop a language? So, so we were in charge of promoting this at the Self-Access. And so we awarded this quality in 2008. And since then, we have been through different steps, and we have been recertifying every 3 years now. The first time that I was involved in trying to understand what was happening in the Self-Access Center was in 2013. So we started with a preliminary study that I entitled Evaluating a Self-Access Center through a Quality Management System. And I finished this with a myth of reality. So could we really bring like what happened into different worlds? Because when we talk about quality, normally we associated this with factories, and we associated this more with a different kind of business, but sometimes not with education, in the sense of establishing or caring for the satisfaction of our students. So that's why in the first moment I said, well, this is a myth, or this is for real. Okay, so this is more or less who we are. When we talk about learning autonomy, I'm pretty sure that you've been in touch with these concepts about learning autonomy from your vision as student or from your vision as a professor, right? We have professors here. So in 1981, in Rio Lec, he developed a concept about learning autonomy. He was one of the very first scholars in saying that, or trying to describe what was the relation of autonomy, but applied into a context as a learner, and basically as a language learner. So he came up with a term that is the ability to take charge of one's own learning. So he said, to be autonomous is to decide what you want to do, how you want to do it, and why you want to do it, right? So later on, we move into different concepts about autonomy. So this is a term that is alive, and people and scholars and people that have been doing studies around autonomy have been adding things to this concept, to this first concept that was like the mother of all the concepts, and then we have all these like a cascade of terms, of concepts. In this case, in 2000, Noonan said, okay, so we have what Oleg said, to be in charge of your own process of learning. Okay, but what does this mean? What this includes, right? So he said, the first thing we need to know is that we need to set objectives. So we need to know what we want, okay? Then we need to care about how we're going to do it, about the metacognitive processes. And then through this, we have to develop a series of skills that are going to help us to really, really see if what we set in the objective is what we really need, okay? And then he says like, well, self-monitoring and self-evaluating. Sometimes we think that to monitor what we do or to evaluate what we do, it takes so long and it could be very confusing. But later on, then we're going to see that it's not that confusing or that difficult. And then finally, when we have done A, B, C, D, and D, so we came to the part of selecting materials and learning activities that we think we can use in order to accomplish our objectives. And then in 2001, Schelen Sabot, they said, okay, Noonan has said, he has said this, but what about if we add a little bit or other concepts to this? And they said, okay, so what about raising awareness? What about a changing in attitudes and transferring roles? What this mean? To be aware of what we need, because we're going to set objectives. We're going to care about our learning process, because we're going to understand that we need certain skills in order to develop this learning, right? And then we need to change the way we see the way we learn, right? So this is the change in attitude. It's not just caring that, okay, the teacher is the one that has to provide everything I need to learn. No, it was more about like, okay, now I can be a little bit in charge of what I need. And then transferring roles. This is about like that the student can be a little bit of a teacher, deciding what is best for the student. Okay, this is about like transferring roles, okay? And it's not like you're going to be alone. It's not going to be that you're going to take the place of the professor, the teacher. No, it's just to decide a little bit what we can do, how we can do it. Because sometimes when we are in the classroom, the teacher is the one that plans, the teacher is the one that cares, the teacher is the one that selects those materials that we as teachers think that is going to be the best for you. So in this case of transferring roles, it's a little bit to think as not exactly as a teacher, but to be in charge of what you think you need, okay? But this process of being a little bit aware of what implies to be an autonomous learner normally happens or has been developed in certain environments. And normally this is more accepted in the area of languages, okay? And this area of languages is being involved or has involved these self-access language centers. As you know, the majority, not saying all of the self-access, the public universities, they have a self-access center, okay? I don't know if in Chiapas you have one, right? But normally it is associated with the languages department or with the languages faculty. And it's a completely different space. It's a completely different language learning space, okay? And if we go back to a little bit of what the professional, how they have described a self-access language center, the first we can find is in 1989, and she said that is a combination of materials, technological, and human resources. So all these things we can find in a self-access center, right? We have materials for people that would like to go there and learn. And now with this new area, with the introduction of internet, computers, and et cetera, and of course, the human resources, the advisors, and all the administrative people that work there, and of course, students, okay? So we have these different environment. And then she continues saying, at a SALC, learning advisors become a significant part of explaining, developing, and enhancing autonomy. So it is not just like you go there and, as Oleg said, you're going to be in charge of your own learning. No, we are there to provide you with the with suggestions, with ideas, and to help you to understand what this new learning environment that you are maybe that you're facing for the first time. What is it? And then she continued developing her own definition that she started in 1989. So SALC might provide the facilities to have students to learn how to use the language learning techniques and to practice those techniques as they engage in language learning. It is like that. So if you see, she moved into the part of materials. So we're there. So we need to help you to understand how you're going to use those materials because you're not teachers, right? You're students. And if you just grab a book or an exercise, you might don't know what to do with that. So it is important for us to be there to facilitate the materials and to facilitate your learning process as students, of course. And later on in 2005, Garner and Miller said, well, a SALC is composed by a series of elements that once they are combined, they provide a rich language learning environment. So by a series of elements, they might imagine that the materials, the technological, and the human resources. So this is a self-access center. And self-access center have many different visions according to the universities they are in. Okay, maybe your self-access center don't have the same vision. It doesn't have the same vision as our center, right? So each one, that is a good thing about the self-access, that they can be modified according to the circumstances, according what each center needs, or according to what the population, the students need. So it's not like they are all the same in each and every university, not in Mexico, but all over the world where they exist. Okay, so this is the good thing about the self-access language centers. Okay, and of course, I think that all of them are in the vision of helping a student to be aware about the benefits of being an autonomous learner. I think this is the focus of all the self-access centers in the end. Okay, understanding a little bit what is to be an autonomous learner. And every time that I have the opportunity of sharing my research, this is the quote that really impacted me since the very first time that I read it. And it says, it was developed by Sharing. It says, the process of becoming autonomous does not necessarily happen in isolation, and teachers have a crucial role in helping students to become more autonomous. This is something that really, as I said, impacted me, because sometimes when we talk to students and we say, well, you need to be a little bit autonomous, you need to understand, or you need to develop your own strategies, and students might not understand what this means, what this implies. Because they say, okay, if I come to a self-access language center, I'm going to be alone. Nobody's going to be there to help me, to guide me, right? Because you said that I need to be autonomous. And sometimes sometimes students associate this autonomy with being alone, right? And as if we start explaining our students that they are not going to be alone, that they are going to be, we are going to be there as advisors. We're going to be there to help them, to support them, and not necessarily for them to be totally autonomous, but at least to understand what autonomy is, to understand the benefits of autonomy, and to be a little bit aware at the end of the process what autonomy meant to them. Okay, so because as Oleg said, you're going to be in charge of your own learning. You're going to be the one who's going to be in charge of making the decisions. You're going to be in charge of deciding what is best for you. Yes, that is to be autonomous, but not, as Sharon said, in isolation, right? We as advisors at the Self-Access, we're there for you. We are there to guide you, to help you to understand that it's a process. And as a process, you need to go a student little by little, not like the very first day that you come to a self-access center, you're going to be autonomous, right? So it is not possible. It might take you years to understand, it might take you months to understand this, or it might take you a session to understand this, right? So it depends on the kind of student or on the kind of things you would like to achieve through these guidance, okay? So, but is that is to understand what autonomy is. It's not to work in isolation. It's not to work alone. It's to decide and to ask for help, okay? So this is going to be like, at the very end of this presentation, so you're going to see how I try to manage to put all these concepts together. Okay, but then I think like two of the most important services that all the self-access centers around the world give or provide is advising and learning or training workshops. It doesn't matter which one you consult. If you want to check a little bit on internet, in any and all of them, they provide advising and learning or training workshops, okay? So in this case, I'm focusing on this first service that we provide. And as I said, this is the first part of, or this is the first opportunity we have to let you know as a student, like why we're there, right? Why do we exist and what benefits the center can provide in your learning. And if we said, Marina Monson-McPherson, she said, advising is the ability in learning in learners to identify language needs by selecting appropriate resources, planning, monitoring, and evaluating. And if you remember, I named this talk as a planning and evaluating, right? And if you see, it is a process, right? It's a process we need to follow in order to understand what this is, okay? And if you said, you as a learner, it says you, in this advising process, the main goal is to help you to understand what you need as a learner. It's not what I need, it's not what I think you need, right? But it's to develop a process to help you to understand your needs, okay? And to really try to dissect this, because you said, well, I have a lot of needs in learning, but little by little, you're going to see advising is a part is a part of the process of helping you to identify all these things to make your language learning more accurate and simpler. But believe me, it is not just something as a student that you face for the first time, and maybe you feel confused, and maybe you say like, why am I here, what I'm doing here? But it is also that when we have the role, if you remember one of the challenges above said, transferring roles, it also applies for teachers, right? It is not the same being a professor in charge of every single step that happens in the classroom and to become an advisor. We need to wear different suits, okay? We need to see learning with different lenses, right? It is not the same thing. And for example, when you become an advisor, when we arrive working, or when we arrive to a self-access and we're going to start working as an advisor, we arrive with our expectations and assumptions, right? It is not, we see advising, we see workshops, we see the philosophy of becoming autonomous, believe me, in very different ways when you arrive as an advisor, as a teacher, to a self-access, right? So this is, each of us arrive with an expectation, something that we want or something we need from the self-access, but also we assume certain roles, okay? Another role that we need to focus on this is the advisor as a learning mediator. In this part, the principal role of the play, it's not the advisor, is the learner, right? And so we need to mediate that part that sometimes is difficult to understand, but we need to start thinking that we are going to be just the part of, we are going to mediate, that we are going to establish a connection between the student, the learner, and what the learner needs, okay? So in that part, so we are going to mediate this learning process. Advisors reflect on their own practices. This is very important. Why it is very important? Because it is so good that we would be in the possibility sometimes of recording what we do at the self-access, that we can think what we said, how we said it. If we were, as advisors, if we were able to help our learners. So it is very, very important that we can also be a mediator between what we do and how we do it. Okay, it is very, very, very important that we care about our own practices at the self-access as advisors, right? Another problem that we can face as advisors is when we arrive to the self-access center with a preconceived idea of what is learner autonomy. Believe me, if we conduct a survey at this moment with different advisors. So we're going to see that most of them have a different perception of what learning autonomy is, right? This is not bad. This is not bad. This is good, because from all these different ways of seeing learning autonomy, so we can really get into a concept that applies to our own self-access, okay? And this is so good if we have the opportunity of doing this. It is not bad, but if we know how to manage all these different conceptions and different ideas and different concepts, so we can get at the very end a very nice concept created by all the advisors that work in the same learning environment, okay? There are other advisors, of course, that they understand their role and they are very active listeners, right? They really know how to listen to what the learner has to say, how to interpret what the learner said, and of course, how to translate all these into words that the learner can understand and can apply, because it says here, to concrete strategies and structure support during and after the advising session, right? So as you said, as you have seen, it is not easy to be an advisor, right? We have to work a lot in order to also to create this culture of advising, and to know that as a student needs to transfer roles when they want to become a little bit autonomous. So we as teachers, we need to transfer roles if we want to be an advisor at the self-access, okay? Okay, advising on learning autonomy. Of course, we would like to say that, okay, yes, all my students or all the learners that arrive to the self-access center, they are more aware about what they want. They reflect, okay, about what they want in the language learning. But this is not the real world, okay? Sometimes it is very hard for our students, for our learners, to identify what they need, what they want, how they want to solve the problems they have. And this is good. This is good because we are there to help our learners, okay? Of course, some learners would like to be more autonomous than others. And this is true. There are students that are very responsible in the way of, they say, I have this goal because I want to get a very good grade in my examination, or I need TOEFL, or I need this, or I need that, because I want to get a scholarship in other place, and I need to work a little bit more, or I need to work outside the classroom. And this is the way they are starting to become a little bit autonomous, because they have set a goal, as we said at the very beginning. Like Noonan said, you need to put, or you need to create your own objectives. It's not what the teacher said in the classroom is important, but it's what you think is important for you, right? Motivated and self-regulated learners. Of course, this one, to become autonomous, you need to be motivated. You need to have something in mind that is going to help you to work, to give an extra beyond your classes, right? And self-regulated learners is, as we said, we need to be able to evaluate ourselves and to monitor the process we're being through, okay? And as a learner, we need to break the wall, right? We need to see beyond the window, and we need to say, okay, my needs are these, and I need to change my behavior as a student, as a learner, right? To understand the problems you have, because the problems you have as a learner is not the same as what your classmate has, okay? It is not the same. So each of us have a different way of seeing the language, right? And so we have different motivations to learn the language. So this is why we have certain and different problems that they are not the same from our partner of our classmate. Okay, learners' consciousness and meaningful choices to the learning process. This is one of the most important things where we as advisors jump in, right? Because it says we, as I said before, it's not that you're going to become an autonomous learner automatically. No, it's a process. And if you, at the end of this process, you really, really believe that you are an autonomous learner, wonderful. At the end of the process, you are aware that you are able to think on the problems you have, to think on the ways that you might solve them, and you are aware then that autonomy exists, and it's marvelous too, right? So we have to see it as a learning process that is not easy, but it's not difficult, okay? And then something that is like the everyday, okay? Learners arrive at advising sessions feeling overwhelmed. Because when we say, you know what, why don't you go to a self-access and ask for an advising session? And they said, what is that? And what is the purpose of this, right? So they arrive to the self-access, they arrive to the very first appointment at with the advisor and about the talking about what the problems are, how they feel, etc., etc. Believe me, it is not easy, because some students, like we have these, are aware and reflective and etc. But some others are like very shy and maybe they don't get the mechanics. So they say like, why am I going to talk about my problems with the teacher that I don't know, right? Maybe this person is going to judge me. Maybe this person is not going to understand what my problems are, etc., etc. So believe me, most of the students arrive feeling overwhelmed. Okay, but then you're going to see that is the least of the problems. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Betty.
Yes.
We have like 10 minutes left. We're running out of time.
Oh, okay. Well,
but 10 minutes left still, and then the questions. So
okay.
Go on.
The research gap, as I said before, we need to understand the purpose of advising. We need to understand the role as an advisor, and we need to understand the role as a student. Okay. And first is what? Okay, what is the purpose of advising? And then something that is very, very, very important, it says, we as an advisor, sometimes we think that we know what our students need. So this is what my training needs versus what I think my advisees need, all right? And then the student, they arrive feeling overwhelmed because we have my learning needs versus what classroom teachers think I need, and what the advisors think I need, okay? So this is part of my research, that at the very end, I ended up knowing that we assume a role that we have, or we need to be the leading role in the self-access, but it's not true, okay? And we need to focus on what the students need and why they need what they need, okay? Okay, so my research, sorry, I'm running. As you see, it's not testing about autonomy in language learning. It's more about what happened from the very beginning to the end, right? And I came up with this, okay? Everything that I said before, it's here, it's summarized over here, right? It is advising. I think that advising is one of the main services of the self-access. And what is the result that I want to get through this service? Students' awareness of learning autonomy. Not, if you see, it's not to create autonomous learners. If we do, marvelous. But my goal is to make students be aware of what learner autonomy is and the benefits. And if you see the theory, the objectives, and the methodology, this is for the first part, because if we remember, as I mentioned, each of the advisors arrived to the Self-Access Center with their own idea of what a Self-Access Center is, with their own idea of what autonomy is, and with their own idea of what to do in an advising session, okay? So this is why that we need to be very conscious and to create and to work with all the advisors and to create our own vision and mission about what, or the main objective of what an advising session should be, right? And of course, then we need to evaluate our process and to say, okay, so we at the very end created this, it is fantastic, right? Okay, so we need to continue doing what we're doing and to improve and et cetera, in order to be better. Oh, we didn't get, or we couldn't help our students to be aware about learning autonomy. Okay, so we need to go back and we need to understand in which part of the process we fail, okay? So this is for my years of researching and studying, this is one of the models that I am proposing in order to organize the first part of advising, and then there is another one for the learning workshops. But this is what I've been working recently in creating this operational process model in order to put together all the different elements about this. And well, this is about what we need to do, right? Micro skills and macro skills, and how we, Kelly suggested in 1996, how we can conduct an advising session, right? In order to help our students. We can start just like listening in a very, very broad way, or we can really become active listeners, right? And of course, this is an example of all this that we have, how to be an active listener, how to make our students feel that we are there, that we are listening them, right? So Marina Monson McPherson suggested that we are interpreting, if the student says, I don't understand this, I don't understand that, so we can interpret. Yes, we can question our students, we can paraphrase what the students say. We need to show that I understand what you're saying because I was a student once, right? So this is what she proposed about being an active listener as an advisor. And for further considerations, well, it's just like to prove this model that I'm trying to implement this semester at the Self-Access Center. Something that is important, not to focus, even though we are under a quality management system, it is not like to standardize. It is more like to harmonize processes because we are in the field of education. This is what I would like people to understand, that it's not to standardize process, it's to harmonize what is going there, right? And of course, to evaluate the operational process model. And finally, to train teachers and advisees, okay? And I think, well, this is the end. Thank you. I think I just like went so fast, but I think we have time for questions.
Yes, please.
Doctor?
If you have any questions about this presentation, we do have a Self-Access Center at Language School Campus Tapachula. And the way it works might be slightly different from what you have presented. But truth is that as part of the program in Licenciatura en Enseñanza del Inglés, we ask our students, especially in their first semester, second, third semester, to cover a certain amount of hours, to spend certain amount of hours. And it is mandatory. This is curriculum, it's in the curriculum, right? So they need to go there and they need to, as you said, find what they need. Truth is that I guess we have been very I don't know, this has been reluctant in a way. We're not very aware as teachers on how to manage this or how to help our students. So this really, your presentation really opened our minds to, oh, this is something I haven't really considered before. So I don't know if you have any questions here. There are some teachers here with us. So I don't know if you have any questions on Dr. Beatriz Navarro's presentation.
As you mentioned, Dr. Magda, it is different. It is different. Each center has its own life, right? To say like that, right? It is not the same. If you come to our center, you would see that we manage the center in a different way. If we go to Durango, they're going to see that they manage the center in a different way. If we go to Japan, they're going to see that they manage the center in a different way. If we go to the University of Cambridge, where they have one, we're going to see that they manage the center in a different way. But in the end, it is the same thing, right? Like to make students aware that there is an opportunity of making their own decisions about learning.
I don't know if you have any questions. Someone wants to
any questions,
comments on this presentation.
No.
Let's see if
I don't know if in the chat you have something.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think
it was clear enough, but let's see if they have any question on this. So, well, I do have a question, which is a mandatory question these days, which is how did you cope with the pandemic in your self-access center? What happened? And after the breakthrough, are you running the self-access center in the same way you did before, or has it changed after the pandemic?
As you mentioned, it was a surprise for everybody when they said that the universities were closing, but we decided not to close. So we changed all of our inside activities into a virtual CADI, okay, into a virtual self-access center. So we started providing advising online, then using this platform, Zoom, Meet, and et cetera. So we move our learning workshops through these platforms. And that was the way that we have been working for almost the last 2 years, right? Because it took us like 15 days to move from the inside activities to the virtual activities. And since then, we are like working in that way. Now we have returned a little bit and return and not return, right? Some activities have been returning to be inside and the other ones still online. But I think we're going to continue with that, with these two modalities next semester.
I guess there's a question.
Yes, we have a question, yes.
Yes, from teacher Lourdes Nakamura. She says, what has been the response from students once you have made this modification in the way it operates now, your self-access center operates now?
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Now we are providing, last semester, we provided around 100 and something workshops. And now we are running around 95, 96 workshops online. And we have 30 advisors providing advising sessions from very early in the morning to very late at night, all day long. So the response has been marvelous.
It sounds like a lot of work, but you managed somehow to do it.
Yes, and I need to really thank the advisors for all their support, because it was not easy for them, it was not easy for me, but we have a great team working there.
Well, congratulations. I don't know if there's any other question. I guess some people might be leaving this session because there's
yes, me too.
There's a common presentation. Yes.
Okay.
So,
well, thank you very much for the invitation.
No,
and whenever you want to come to my SALC, it would be a wonderful opportunity to share.
Well,
Maybe-
I must, on behalf of language school staff and principal, it is a great honor to read your constancia de participación por haber impartido la ponencia titulada Advising in SALCs from Planning to Evaluating en el marco del evento llamado Homecoming del 2020-2021, 20 Years of Language Teaching, siendo el día jueves 11 de noviembre del 2021 de modalidad virtual, pero con sede en Ciudad de Tapachula. Agradecemos a la doctora Beatriz Navarro el tiempo que nos ha dedicado para esta ponencia, su disponibilidad para participar. Nuevamente una disculpa por el retraso en la entrada y espero que para todos, igual que para mí, haya sido pues bueno, recordar esto que a veces se nos olvida, ¿no? Learner autonomy and the importance of self-access center when learners are learning this language that we need these days. Pues agradecemos a todos, especialmente
Gracias.
a ti. Thank you very much, Betty.
No, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Samuel.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, thank you, everyone.
But I said bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Disappearing. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much.